Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Oh, how awful it must be to live in Fort William. Now, it's a great place if you're a tourist, of course, but if you are a resident, then it is an absolute hellhole. The High Street has just opened its 10th outdoor clothing shop, catering for walkers, hikers, mountain climbers, that sort of thing. Nowhere in the town can you buy a bag of chips or do some shopping, food shopping. And if you want to go to a supermarket and get a full sort of carload of food, you have to do a 132-mile round trip all the way to Inverness. Why? Why is the local council totally incapable of denying permission for outdoor clothing shops and instead only giving permission for the sort of shops that the locals need? Food shops, supermarkets, chippies, that sort of thing. Well, of course, it is an SNP-run council, and they just don't want anyone living in the Highlands to have anything at all, because as far, of course, as the SNP are concerned, the Highlands don't exist. We'll take a look at this, see why it is so utterly awful to live in Fort William. Here goes. So, fury in Highland Town as its 10th outdoor clothing shop opens, but there's no fish shop or butchers. People living in Fort William have to drive to Inverness if they want to go shopping for anything other than walking boots or waterproofs. And the influx of tourist shops shows no signs of slowing. Again, SNP Council, they're the ones that give the permission, the planning permission for these shops. Why can't they just say, no, we can't have any more outdoor clothing shops. There's 10 already. Next shop that comes up has to be a food shop, has to be a takeaway, has to be anything other than an outdoor clothing shop. Anyway, people in Fort William have responded angrily to the opening of the town's 10th outdoor clothing shop, catering for tourists who flock to climb Ben Nevis and tackle the West Highland Way. Now, I've been to Ben Nevis, of course I have, but I've been to Fort William, and it's fine. There's nothing wrong with Fort William as someone who's staying there for a long weekend or a couple of days in the week if as a tourist and you're passing through and things like that. But they're right, and it must be bloody awful if you live there. That lack of facilities. It's almost as though the SNP have said, right, this is now a tourist town. Nobody's actually living here. We don't care if you do live here. Tough. We're designating this for tourists only. And it's quite clearly bonkers, isn't it? Why? It's SNP, isn't it? They just haven't got a clue. Anyway, Go Outdoors is located in a former Tesco supermarket on the High Street in a town that already boasts similar outlets, including Mountain Warehouse, Nevisport, Trespass, and the locally owned Ben Nevis. The last non-outdoors clothing shop, M&Co, closed after the firm went into administration last year, and residents now face a 132-mile round trip to Inverness to buy anything other than walking boots or waterproofs. It's a long way. I mean, it's a beautiful road. It's a great journey. Don't get me wrong. It's a beautiful. You got all the locks. It's fantastic. You shouldn't have to do it, though. Not on a weekly basis. It's beyond a joke now, one local told the Herald. What about a food shop? Something for the locals. Another said, I guess it's better than lying empty, but does Lochaber really need another outdoor shop? No, it doesn't. It absolutely doesn't. Fort William councillor Angus MacDonald, who opened a bookshop and the town's first cinema in 15 years, told the newspaper the Lochaber residents were crying out for a number of services. He said, we could really do with a shoe repair shop, a computer repair shop, any sort of clothing shop, shoe shops in particular, a laundrette, dry cleaner and a delicatessen. A fish shop and a butcher would be brilliant as well. He says, I can only think that these companies don't do their research. They see that we are the wettest place in Europe and Ben Nevis is there and think, oh good, we'll open an outdoor store, when there are far too many already. And you wonder how they make money. Given how many there are, and there's only a set market. How do any of them make any kind of profit whatsoever? You'd think the laws of supply and demand would destroy at least two or three of them. But it's bonkers. Why are the council allowing it? We all know the SNP are stupid, but even so. Oh, well. Anyway, Mr. McDonald said the Highland Council had missed an opportunity to buy the vacant Tesco and turn it into an indoor market, and revealed that a quarter of high street units are either charity shops or standing empty. It's a town dying on its arse. Because every shop is going to end up being an outdoor clothing shop. Yeah. Anyway, he insisted the town was in better shape than it had been for a decade, and he said that high street rents had fallen significantly in recent years. That's only because there's no one in them. He said things have swung in favour of the tenant. It's about time too. Mark Lingfield, former chairman of Fort William, Inverloch and Torlandy Community Council, said the proliferation of outdoor clothing shops was simply down to the law of supply and demand. He said businesses are there to make money, and if a business thought it was viable to be selling things like shoes, it would be doing it. I would love it to be the case, and it's ludicrous that you can't, but it is the way now. He went on there. A public consultation carried out as part of a 2040 master plan for Fort William found that many local people have no reason to use the high street. The council wants to redesign the town centre by attracting quality retailers to fill vacant units and demolishing unsightly buildings. Well, if you want to attract these quality shops, as you put them, you're going to have to offer them a reason to go there. Now, I've got to be honest and say, Fort William, not greatly, it's not a massive big place. And so what you're going to get is a shop will go there that it's got to cater for its market. And that's why there's so many outdoor shops, of course, because there's a lot of tourists coming in. Bang, up they go. But, if you're not going to get, a big store going in if there's not the market there, if there's not the people there. But there's nothing stopping you having a big store like a Tesco or something, and then inside that Tesco you've got your Tesco, but then you have concession stalls, and so you can have the various concessions inside the store. That is a viable alternative. So you have your main Tesco, but then with concessions along the side, so that the Tesco can then rent out those units within the store to help subsidise the cost. Is it just me? Or is that like a sensible thing? Then all these little concessions don't have to be big because they're only appealing to the, let's say, 10,000 people or whatever that live around the area. It's enough to tick over, and that's the point. It's not hard. But of course, it is hard for the SNP because they're all dim, aren't they? They're all totally dim. Anyway, I shall stop there and come up. But it is just another typical example of the SNP not understanding anything and basically making life so bad for the local people. Now, they say they've got all these empty units. Put food shops in them. Put a takeaway in them. Put something in them. And if you have to let them have it at very low rent and very low rates, do so. Anyway, coming up. It always amazes me when you have empty units on a high street. It's almost as though the council want them empty. What the council needs to do is reduce the rents and rates to make sure that those empty units are filled with something, with somebody. Have somebody doing something in there. It makes the high street viable. And of course, once the high street's viable and you get people down there and there's a lot of footfall, it keeps the high street viable. And then you can slowly increase rent and rates over time. And it's one of those things that, it's a virtuous circle. Everybody wins ultimately. But when you've got a high street half filled with empty units, it makes it a very unattractive place to be, and people don't go there. And that means it harms the businesses that actually are on the high street. And it's the quickest way of killing a town and killing a local economy. It isn't hard, is it? It isn't hard when you've got a brain. It isn't hard when you've got an IQ higher than about 65. Unfortunately, the people of the Highlands keep voting for the SNP. I'll stop there. Anyway, there we go. Thank you very much for watching this. I hope you've been suitably entertained and educated about the awfulness of having an SNP-run council, especially in a rural place outside of the central belt. God, you're in trouble if you do that, aren't you? Anyway, till next time, stay safe, stay well, and I shall talk to you later.